Hey, I'm Nancy Cavey, National ERISA and Individual Disability Attorney. Welcome to Winning Isn't Easy. Before I get started, I have to give you a legal disclaimer. This podcast isn't legal advice. The Florida Bar Association told me that I had to say this, but nothing is ever going to prevent me from giving you an easy to understand overview of the disability insurance world, the games the disability carriers play, and what you need to know to get the disability benefits you deserve. So off we go. Today, I'm going to talk about fibromyalgia and objective medical findings. Now, it doesn't matter to me whether or not you have fibromyalgia or not, because I think there are lots of lessons that you can learn from this podcast about disability carriers' requirement that you have objective medical findings. I'm first going to talk about UNUM's use of self-reported subjective medical condition policy language to limit ME/CFS fibromyalgia claims. I'm going to talk about how the First Circuit rejected a CPET exam resulting in a UNUM fibromyalgia win. And I'm going to talk about how whether or not your ERISA policy requires that your disability claim be substantiated by significant objective medical findings. Are you ready to go? Well, before we do that, let's take a quick break because we've got a lot of information to share with you today.
Have you been robbed of your peace of mind from your disability insurance carrier? You owe it to yourself to get a copy of Robbed of Your Peace of Mind, which provides you with everything you need to know about the long-term disability claim process. Request your free copy of the book at caveylaw.com today.
Welcome back to Winning Isn't Easy. UNUM uses self-reported subjective medical condition policy languages to limit the payment of benefits in CFS fibromyalgia case. So let's learn their game. Subjective complaints like body-wide pain, weakness, fatigue, and brain fog are disabling characteristics of fibromyalgia, ME/CFS. Disability carriers hate subjective medical conditions, and many policies or plans will limit how long they'll pay disability benefits based on either a self-reported symptom limitation or a subjective medical condition limitation clause that's found in their policy or plan. So let's talk about this in greater detail. If you have fibromyalgia and you're thinking about applying for your disability insurance benefits or have applied for those benefits, I think you want to know if there's a self-reported symptom, SRS, or subjective medical condition limitation clause in your policy or plan. Now, while these terms may have different names, the practical result is the same. Benefits are limited to just 2 years, regardless of how disabled you are at the end of those 2 years. So I want to give you an example. I'm going to talk about the case of Ovest versus UNUM Life. It's a First Circuit case, and it's a classic example of a disability carrier who disputes the fibromyalgia diagnosis and how disabling policyholder symptoms are. Now, Ovest, who had chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, was paid disability benefits for over 43 months before her claim was denied under the policy's self-reported symptom limitation. The plan had provided for a maximum payment of 24 months for disabilities due to mental illness and disabilities based primarily on self-reported conditions. Now, this policy term is common in UNUM policies or plans, and you want to get your policy out, regardless of whether it's UNUM or not, and see whether or not you have a subjective medical condition policy limitation. But I will tell you that the outcome is really going to depend on where you live. Why would I say that? Well, what circuit law applies can make the difference in how the self-reported symptom or self-subjective medical condition clause is interpreted. Now, you would think that courts across the country would uniformly interpret policy or plan terms. And if only it was that easy, I wouldn't have a job. Now, the leading case on interpreting UNUM's self-reported symptom limitation is found in a case called Weissenkamp. It's a 2003 case out of the First Circuit. The court ruled that the SRS limitation only applied to illnesses that were diagnosed primarily based on self-reported symptoms, rather than to illnesses for which the disabling symptoms are self-reported. Now, OVA's plan was issued in Massachusetts, which is governed by the First Circuit court law. And the First Circuit is notoriously unfriendly to disabled policyholders. Her claim, unfortunately, was governed by the First Circuit law. The court in OVA said that it wasn't permissible for the carrier to deny a disability claim because there was no objective basis of a diagnosis that wasn't subject to objective verification. The court said that the carrier could require objective evidence of functional limitations and declined to follow the Weissenkamp Federal Circuit law. So we had a discrepancy between two circuits. One circuit said, too bad, so sad. The other circuit was much more sympathetic to the use of self-reported symptoms in the diagnosis and establishment of restrictions and limitations. So what are the 4 lessons I think that can be learned from these two cases? Well, the first one is that subjective medical condition limitations are common policy limitations and that these benefits can be limited to 2 years. Secondly, disability carriers can't require objective proof of a medical condition that can't be proven by objective testing, such as migraines, headaches, fibromyalgia, ME/CFS. But the third thing we learned is that disability carriers can require objective proof of the subjective symptoms being disabling, as the term disabled is defined by the policy. And the fourth thing we've learned is there's no uniform court interpretation of these terms, and the result depends on what federal circuit law applies. So if you have a subjective medical condition, get out your disability policy, read it, and if you find that clause, I think you need to immediately consult with an experienced ERISA disability attorney who will tell you what the applicable federal law is. Why would you want to do that at the time you're applying or before your claim has been denied? Because you need to know what you need to prove based on that particular circuit's requirements and interpretation of these subjective medical condition limitations. It's just a wise thing to do to save you from pain in the future. In the next segment, I'm going to talk about how the First Circuit, who we've already mentioned before, rejects a CPET examination result in a UNUM fibromyalgia claim. Let's take a quick break before we head into our next segment.